jobs yet.
Are you getting a feeling on obviously some talks that might be going on before we get to this special session between both sides?
Well, typically that happens ahead of time, certainly. The leadership on both sides of the aisle will get together with the governor's office and the budget office and look at various proposals. Although I would say that a good deal of that also occurs on that day. And we'll have meetings on both sides of the aisle in a caucus room and lay out some of the proposals that the governor's put together. They can agree to some of those, or they can disagree, or they might put other alternatives on the table, say an amendment to that. Some of the things that have been proposed from both sides was a tax amnesty plan, where you invite people to pay taxes that they owe without giving them the penalties, and oftentimes that brings in, could be $20 to $40 million.
How much is outstanding?
Well, I don't have that number offhand,
Okay.
but usually when we do one of these amnesty programs, it can vary, as I said, 20, 25 million to upwards of 40 million, depending on the circumstances.
So no penalties, just pay your taxes.
Exactly,
and we'll look the other
or
way.
reduced, much reduced penalties. They are sometimes up to 25% even in the interest that's due on
That's
some
real
of
money.
that.
So there is real
There's a
incentive,
real
isn't
there is a real incentive to do that. There's also an interesting suggestion about taking the unclaimed bottle deposits. You know, every time you buy soda and other things, you are paying your 5 cents on that. Oftentimes, people don't return those to the retailers, and that's put aside in a fund and typically goes back to the distributors. There's a proposal on the table to suggest that goes into the general fund. There's some other proposals as well to delay a lot of the new programs that might have been proposed that are not yet ongoing, so that we can delay some of those. I think those are good suggestions. There are also a lot of carry forwards of budget items and departments that haven't spent out what they were allocated the year before. We're going to take a look at that and see if that can be brought into the following year. That has to be agreed upon as well by the legislature, as well giving the governor a little bit of more capability to transfer funds between departments.
That's a little difficult for each department, because if the departments don't spend that money, they figure that they won't get that much the next year.
Well, in
right?
this case, it's probably certain that they're not going to get that much in the next year. And it's not only important to be able to have access to that money that will reduce the cost for that year, but it's also important that if one department isn't making use of that fund, it should go to another department that is woefully deficient, our Department of Corrections, our Department of Social Services, our nursing homes, and so forth, that to give that little bit of leeway up to a point. And the governor
People
suggested
get very parochial.
They very
when you start
parochial.
talking
They
about
do.
their budgets
They do.
and their monies for
but
that.
she's proposing a very modest way to do this, and only up to a certain dollar amount. And at that point, if it goes above that, to go back to the legislature and have them review it and get their permission to do that. There's also some interesting, commissions that were being proposed last year that haven't been put in place. The Native American Commission, the Asian Commission, and those can be delayed, as well as there's a sundry of things that added together would actually close our budget gap for the time being. It doesn't do it all together for the end of 2009, but I think it could take us up to the beginning of next year. Beyond these easy to do, more palatable alternatives, then we have to start looking at some serious proposals, as the public has already suggested.
Now, are we going to be able to do this all on this one day?
Well,
that's a huge order for one day's worth of legislators.
There is, but as I said, this comprehensive plan has already been put out. We have already gotten details of this. We're already digesting it, and I think that the reality of what we're confronting right now should not be lost on anyone. And for those that are still thinking this just is a momentary situation, that maybe things will change again, they're simply deluding themselves. The public knows it, they are feeling it. The fact that we're just now starting to see job losses, people should realize that in the economy, the unemployment numbers are a lagging indicator. In other words, that's the last shoe to drop. And probably by the first of the year, we're going to see a great deal more. Typically, businesses will look, even those that may not necessarily need to cut back right away, are looking at that as well, because they're not sure of the future at all. There are so many small businesses that depend on the financial services industry, not as primary parts of their business, but Dry
adjunct.
cleaners, absolutely. Dry cleaners, restaurants, all kinds of other services, limousine services, rides to the airport. Those have, and I ask wherever I go, how are you doing? How is your business, whether it's a diner or it's a realtor, and they will tell you, things have changed dramatically.
You are not going to be idle in this new role as Senator-elect. Listen, we've got to take a quick break here.
Very good.
We have got more coming up. Stand by. We'll have more with Senator-elect Tony Boucher on Cablevision's Meet the Leaders. You stay right where you are.
Explore her grandeur. Appreciate her beauty. Protect her for tomorrow. Recycle your old rechargeable batteries. Call 877-2RECYCLE or visit us online at calltorecycle.org.
I joined the National Guard and never thought I'd be saving lives.
It's more than money for college. It's built my character and given me a sense of accomplishment. Now I'm on a career path and I'm the leader of my team.
I put on the uniform and I have a whole new outlook on life. Country, community, family. That's what matters most to me. If that matters to you, go to 1-800-GO-GUARD.com.
Does it scare you to know that bed bugs are real? Or that termites cause billions of dollars in property damage? Or that cockroaches and mice contribute to asthma? Well, what should really scare you is not knowing these things. Because when you don't know what you're dealing with, household pests are a lot scarier than they should be. Learn more at pestworld.org.
From Olympic gold to mother of two, Mia Hamm's challenge these days is her twin daughter's nutrition.
What I've learned is that your baby needs the big three nutrients. The first two you've probably heard of, folic acid and calcium with vitamin D. A lesser known nutrient is DHA. It's an omega-3 fatty acid that's important for your baby's brain, heart, and eye development.
You can get DHA in fish or through food, supplements, or infant formula fortified with a vegetarian source of DHA. Learn more at thebig3.org.
And welcome back to Cablevision's Meet the Leaders program. Good to have you with us. I'm David Smith. We are back with Senator-elect Tony Boucher of the 26th District. It's great to have you with us, Senator. Thank you so much.
It's great to be here, David. Thank you.
We've been talking a little bit about the realities of the economy, the budget, and so forth, and what we're going to be facing as we go forward, and where the legislature and the governor can get together and try to make up this $6 billion over the next couple of years that we're being faced with. Obviously, state residents are very, very concerned because they're concerned about losing services, they're concerned about having higher taxes, they're concerned about all these things, how it will affect us here in the state of Connecticut. There are a lot of suggestions that are going to be dealt with on the 24th in this special session. There are ways, band-aids, if you will, for a while. Serious long-term solutions are something that's going to be a little more difficult.
It will, and we will be confronting that. We have no illusions, at least I don't have any illusions about that. I work in a financial services firm in my other part of my life, and that is very clear. And certainly the public knows it. They're fearful. We have a lot of stakeholders in this entire process. It's the public that is paying a lot of the bills who are feeling at risk, not just for their own jobs, how they're going to pay for their own mortgages, and many that have kids in college. They have big price tags, but you also have a lot of social services organizations out there. There are a lot of nonprofits that are seeing their donations being severely reduced, some up to 40%. And that downturn that trend line will continue, I'm sure, in the next year. And as we talked about earlier, the unemployment numbers are sure to go up because that's a lagging indicator. That's the last thing to happen, and it goes deeply. And it's also the last thing to come back because as people and businesses economize, shrink back, they're not too certain when it's time to add staffing again. So it's going to take a great deal